He walked into the ballroom with another woman on his arm. His wife didn't cry. She handed out envelopes instead. By the time he realized what she'd done, it was too late. Have you ever watched someone destroy themselves without you lifting a finger? Stay with this story, because this isn't about revenge. It's about power. The quiet kind. To the public, Selina Carver Vale had everything. She was elegant, educated, married to one of America's most powerful men. Axton Vale, founder of Vale Dynamics, billionaire innovator, and boardroom tactician, nicknamed the ice strategist by Forbes for his ruthless clarity in high-pressure deals. They were that couple, the cover story couple, the legacy empire couple. He wore charcoal black suits. She wore champagne-colored gowns. They arrived hand-in-hand to charity auctions and economic summits. Photographers angled to catch her smile. But behind the flashbulbs and private flights, the real story was quieter. In the penthouse high above Manhattan's skyline, Selina often dined alone. No loud fights, no broken vases, just long silences and subtle dismissals. At first, she thought it was stress, growth pains of a global company. He was traveling more, taking calls late, brushing off her concerns as emotional noise. She stayed quiet because she loved him, because she believed the early version of him, the man who once kissed her knuckles, after an argument and whispered, "You're the only calm I've ever known." She held onto that sentence like it was still real, even when everything else started to shift. Their mornings became brief nods and half-done conversations. Their texts shrank to two-word replies. Even his birthday, once marked by weekend getaways and handwritten notes, passed with a muted dinner and his phone on the table the entire night. Selina adjusted. She made herself smaller, kept the house running, handled the social calendar alone, chose her outfits to match his public image, never too bold, never too soft, just enough sparkle to remind people she was still his. She learned not to ask where he was flying next. He rarely told her anymore. One night, he returned from what he called a Zurich roundtable. He dropped his jacket on the bench, didn't look at her, and headed straight for the bedroom. The next morning, while making the bed, she found it. A receipt, folded carelessly. A suite, booked for two, not in his name, in his assistant's, not emailed, not digital, physical, old school. Sloppy. Her hands didn't shake. Her chest didn't pound. She just sat down on the edge of the bed and breathed. Selina didn't scream, didn't throw the receipt at him, didn't call her best friend or her mother. She did something much more dangerous. She stayed quiet. She folded the paper and placed it inside the old jewelry box where she kept her wedding invitation. Then she opened her planner and started writing names. Her attorney, her financial advisor, her cousin in Connecticut who had offered her a room years ago. If things ever went sideways, she wasn't leaving. Not yet. She was observing, counting the lies, watching his patterns. Axton had taught her to study data, remember faces, anticipate motives. He didn't realize she had learned it all. That was his first mistake. Later that week, she asked about Zurich. He didn't blink. "I was in Zurich." "You know that." "What hotel?" "Selina, don't do this. I just asked where you stayed. You're overthinking it." "Was she there with you?" "Stop acting insecure. You sound beneath yourself." That was the moment it broke. Not because of the cheating, but the dismissal. He didn't even try to make her feel seen. He wanted her to doubt herself, gaslight her into silence, shrink her. She nodded and said nothing more. That night, she changed the passcode to the safe. She locked her passport in her side of the closet, created a new bank account under her birth surname, moved her inheritance stocks to a private holding, booked a consultation with a lawyer, one who specialized in quiet separations among high-net-worth couples. She documented every call Axton made after midnight, noted every time he accidentally called her by someone else's name, every weekend trip that didn't line up with his calendar. The woman he was seeing? Selina didn't even care to know her name yet. She wasn't after revenge. She was after clarity. Axton thought he was the master tactician. But he forgot who stood beside him in every boardroom for the past 6 years, who studied his negotiation style, who helped build the Vale Foundation into the most respected philanthropic branch in their industry. He forgot she wasn't just his wife. She was Selina Carver Vale, and she had a better memory than he did. Have you ever stayed silent while someone tried to make you feel small, only to plan your next move with absolute focus? If this moment feels familiar, drop a comment below. Someone might need to hear your story. And if Selina's silence already has your attention, don't scroll. This is only chapter 1. Selina didn't keep journals. She kept records. Every detail mattered now. Not because she wanted proof for confrontation. She wasn't that kind of woman anymore. She wanted precision. She wanted the exit to be clean, quiet, and irreversible. She bought a new notebook the day after the Zurich lie. Plain black leather. No initials, no decoration. She kept it inside her shoe cabinet, behind a pair of unused heels. Each page carried a timestamp. Each line, a thread. Monday. He said he was in Boston. His phone pinged in Denver. Tuesday. She called at 11:17 p.m. He answered. Whispered still in the meeting and hung up. A photo surfaced online. He was at a jazz bar with clients. Wednesday. Joint card charged for dinner in D.C. for 2. He was supposed to be in New York. Thursday. She smelled new cologne on his blazer. Not his usual. Floral. Light. Not hers. By Friday, she had 6 pages filled. But she didn't hate him. That's what surprised her most. She wasn't burning with rage or crying into silk pillowcases. She wasn't breaking plates or demanding explanations. She felt cold, clear, like when the fever breaks, like when your body is finally too tired to fight. She was done begging to be seen. Axton had made his choices, so now she was making hers. That weekend, she invited her old college roommate over, a family lawyer now working in private practice. Her name was Faye. They hadn't seen each other in nearly 2 years. Selina served her coffee. No sugar, almond milk, just like she remembered. Faye sat on the edge of the sectional, silent for a moment as she glanced around the penthouse. "You're still the best hostess I know," she said finally. "But you're not smiling with your eyes, Sel." Selina didn't deny it. She just placed a folder on the coffee table. Faye opened it. Bank statements, real estate deeds, copies of shared accounts, pages from Selina's black notebook, typed and indexed. "This isn't for divorce," Selina said. "Not yet." "Okay. I want you to draw up a silent exit plan. I want the house, the name, and the foundation. And I want to do it so that by the time he realizes what happened, it's already done." Faye blinked, then leaned back, impressed. No court battles, no headlines, no drama, just closure. Faye nodded slowly. "It's doable, but it'll take time. You'll need him to sign something that grants you controlling interest in the foundation before the separation becomes public." "I'll get him to sign," Selina said without hesitation. "How?" Selina's answer was simple. "He stopped reading what I hand him." She tested it a week later. She slipped an internal transfer authorization into a folder marked Quarterly Budget Adjustments. He signed it mid-call, never looking up. She smiled, thanked him, and left the room. Within 3 days, her name replaced his on the Vale Foundation's secondary holding trust. No one questioned it. She'd always handled that side of things. She sat on the edge of her bathtub that night, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling, not smiling, not sad. She felt powerful in a way she couldn't explain, like she was reclaiming something that had always been hers, her peace. The lies didn't stop. They never do. He told her he was flying to Chicago. He sent a photo from a hotel lobby. Problem was, Selina recognized the background. It wasn't Chicago. It was Dallas, the Larimore Hotel. She had hosted a silent art auction there 3 years ago. She remembered the color of the marble, the custom floral arrangement on Tuesdays. The hotel never changed it. She smiled to herself and wrote, "Tuesday, claimed Chicago, Dallas photo, no conference listed." She wasn't keeping track to punish him. She was keeping track because it helped her stay calm. Every lie confirmed that she was right to leave. She had spent so long doubting herself, wondering if she was imagining. The emotional distance, if she was being paranoid, dramatic, insecure. He wanted her to feel that way. He needed her to stay confused, so she became clinical instead, deliberate, dangerous in silence. One night, Axton walked in unusually early, 6:40 p.m. Selina was in the living room, working on a seating chart for the Vale Foundation's annual gala. He stood in the doorway and asked, "Is it me, or have you been different lately?" She looked up. "Different how?" "I don't know. Distant, polite. Like we're business partners instead of..." "Instead of what? Lovers? Friends? Husband and wife?" He didn't finish the sentence. Selina tilted her head. "I'm sorry," she said. "You're just seeing me clearly for the first time." He looked puzzled. "What's that supposed to mean?" She stood, smoothed her dress, and handed him a document for his signature. "This is the updated gala vendor schedule," she said. "Legal needs your signature for the venue change clause." He didn't read it. He just signed it. Selina smiled and added another page to her notebook that night. That weekend, she visited her mother in Philadelphia. Her mom lived in a 2-bedroom cottage, nowhere near the world Selina had married into. They sat on the back porch with blankets over their knees, drinking tea. "You okay?" her mother asked. "I'm not sad anymore." Her mother gave her a long look. "Baby, don't confuse numbness with healing. I'm not numb. I'm preparing." There was a pause. Then her mother reached over, squeezed her hand and said, "Then prepare well. But leave with your head high." Selina nodded. She wasn't going to leave angry. She was going to leave so gracefully it would shame him for years. Back in Manhattan, the gala planning moved fast. Selina met with every vendor. She customized the floral palette to match a storybook theme. She picked every guest. She wrote her own speech. She triple-checked the press list. She invited everyone who mattered in their world. Old investors, board members, press darlings, influencers, family, friends. She wanted them all there. She wanted witnesses, not to his fall, but to her rise. The woman Axton married was soft-spoken, well-mannered and supportive. The woman he would soon face was composed, precise and unstoppable. And he wouldn't even know what hit him. On the night before the gala, Selina placed one final item in her clutch, a stack of sealed envelopes. Each addressed, each printed on her private legal letterhead. She didn't cry. She didn't hesitate. She just whispered to herself, "You're not running away. You're walking through the door you built with your own hands," because she wasn't asking for closure anymore. She was creating it, and the world would see what a quiet woman does. When she's finally done being quiet, Selina stood in front of the full-length mirror, adjusting the neckline of her gown, a deep emerald green. It hugged her waist with quiet strength, flowed past her ankles, and caught the light with every movement. It wasn't the dress she had planned to wear. That one had been too soft, too forgiving. This one made a statement without saying a word. Her earrings were small, just a glint of diamond at her ears, hair swept back, eyes sharp. She wore elegance the way Axton wore control, with intent. She checked the time. The drivers were downstairs. The foundation team was already setting up at the venue. Catering was confirmed. Florals arrived early, gift bags lined and ribboned, and the final speech. She had rewritten it at 3 a.m., alone in the kitchen, with chamomile tea and her lawyer's folder open beside her. This gala wasn't just an event. It was the moment she'd let him decide his fate without realizing it. She hadn't told him anything. No reminders. No mention of the guest list, the venue theme, or his speech slot. If he showed up, he'd show up. If he didn't, the plan would still unfold. Selina descended the stairs of the penthouse alone, every step measured, her heels clicking softly against the polished wood. The doorman greeted her with a compliment. She smiled, offered a polite thank you, and stepped into the black car waiting outside. Tonight, she wouldn't wait for Axton. She was the host, and tonight, The whole city would see her for who she truly was. The ballroom buzzed with soft music, clinking glasses, and curated laughter. Light refracted through gold chandeliers, casting warm glows across designer gowns and tailored suits. Waiters moved like clockwork, offering canapes, champagne, and curated smiles. Selina walked in, not rushed, not late, on time, in command. A ripple moved through the crowd when she entered. As always, eyes turned, not because of her beauty, but because of her presence, because people sensed she belonged in rooms built on influence. She shook hands. She greeted donors by name. She complimented spouses on remembered details, their children's college acceptances, their new roles, even their dogs. She was flawless, but she felt none of it. The real event hadn't started yet, not until he arrived, and then it happened. Exactly 47 minutes after the gala began, the doors opened wide, as if someone had pulled a curtain on a stage. Axton walked in. He wasn't alone. On his arm was a woman easily 15 years younger than him. Dark hair, smoky makeup, the kind of dress designed to be photographed. She smiled as if she belonged there, as if the man beside her had whispered promises into her ear all the way there. Selina didn't blink. She didn't stop mid-sentence. She didn't look to anyone else for reaction. She excused herself from the conversation with the governor's wife, placed her glass gently on the table, and walked across the room with the ease of someone heading toward a dessert table, not a public betrayal. Guests parted like water. They always did for her. She stopped in front of Axton and the woman, close enough for intimacy, far enough for boundaries. "Your dress is beautiful," Selina said softly. The woman blinked. "Thank you." Selina's smile didn't move. "It's custom. I had it made for my 30th birthday last year. Glad it found a second chance." Axton's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Selina turned to him. "You look tired," she said, and then, like a queen dismissing her subjects, she nodded, turned, and walked away. Behind her, gasps were swallowed. Conversations stalled. But Selina didn't look back. She returned to her position near the stage. She gave her speech. Clear, poised, not one tremble in her voice, not one slip of emotion. She thanked her husband publicly, as always. She smiled as she praised his leadership and thanked the attendees for their ongoing support of the Veil Foundation. But she did not thank the man beside her, because he wasn't beside her anymore. He was across the room, watching her, finally realizing she had not flinched. He had brought a fire to burn her, but she walked through it untouched. The music had shifted into a smooth piano piece by the time Selina stepped away from the stage. Her speech was done, every syllable rehearsed but delivered like it had come straight from memory. Not one quiver in her tone, not one misplaced word. She hadn't thanked Axton by name, only referenced him once, calling him a man who supported this vision in its earliest days. It was subtle, intentional, and she knew he caught it. She could feel his eyes on her from across the ballroom, but she didn't turn to meet them. She had a schedule. The real show was only just beginning. In her clutch, nestled between a silk handkerchief and an oil-blotting paper, were 5 envelopes. Each one thick, ivory-colored, wax-sealed with her private crest, a detail she hadn't used in years. She'd chosen it deliberately for tonight, to signal heritage, control, and authority. The Carver name, her name. She took her time moving through the room. First stop, the chairman of the foundation board, a man she'd worked beside for 6 years. She greeted him with a light touch on the arm, a warm smile, and a short thank you. No explanation as she passed him the envelope. His smile faltered slightly, eyes darting to the seal. Next, Axton's CFO, who'd handled their family investments since before the company went public. He was mid-conversation with a venture capitalist when she approached. "I trust you'll handle this with your usual discretion," she said, handing him the envelope with both hands. He blinked. "Of course, Mrs. Vale." She moved on, then to the family lawyer, seated near the bar with his wife. She didn't linger long, just nodded, pressed the envelope into his palm, and mouthed, "Midnight." He nodded once. The fourth, their longtime media strategist, a woman who'd built Selena's public image into one of grace and strength. She gave Selena a look of surprise when handed the envelope, but didn't speak. And finally, the fifth, not a board member or an employee, a friend, the quiet strategist who once told Selena, "Public silence is more powerful than any televised fallout." He read the label on the envelope. His eyes narrowed, but he nodded in understanding. No one asked questions, not yet. But the weight of those envelopes would do the talking before the night was over. Axton was still standing near the bar. His date had drifted somewhere else, perhaps out of shame, perhaps out of boredom. Either way, she was no longer clinging to his side. That made things easier. Selena could feel him watching her, staring. She imagined what was going through his mind, the smug confidence draining slowly, the itch of unease forming in the back of his neck, the realization that her silence wasn't submission. It was strategy, and it was unfolding around him piece by piece. She crossed the ballroom again, not toward him but toward the terrace. Along the way, she nodded at key figures, smiled at guests, and let people see what grace under fire looked like. Axton finally approached. His steps weren't quick, but they carried tension, as if he were trying to decide how to act, as the man of the hour or the fool of it. "You've been busy tonight," he said, voice low. Selena didn't look up immediately. She finished sipping from her champagne flute, then set it down on the edge of a table before facing him. "Hosting takes effort," she said calmly. He scanned her face, searching for signs of anger, embarrassment, jealousy. He found none. "You've made yourself the star of the night," he added, tone clipped. She smiled faintly. "That's usually your role." "I figured I'd try it." He leaned in closer, trying to intimidate, trying to control the conversation like he always had. "Whatever this is, Selena, stop. You don't need to prove anything. Not like this." Her eyes sharpened. "I'm not proving anything, Axton. I'm finishing what you started." His brow creased. "We'll talk about this at home." "No," she said firmly, still calm. "We won't." He stiffened. "What does that mean?" Selena didn't answer. Instead, she looked over his shoulder and gave a nod to the board chairman, who stood a few feet away. The man nodded back once and tapped his wrist, confirming receipt. Axton turned to look, confused. Selena leaned in. "Read what you signed last month." "The revised quarterly strategy memo, page 6. Section 4, B. He blinked. "What?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You gave me control. Of the foundation, of the family account, of the voting seat. You tricked me?" "No." "You stopped reading." "That's different." For a second, he didn't move. His jaw tightened. His hands flexed. Selena stepped back, poised. "Midnight," she said. "There's a board meeting. I've asked them all to join. You should too, or not. It won't change the vote." She walked away. And for the first time in years, Axton Vale had nothing to say. At 11:56 p.m., the service elevator in the back hallway of the gala venue opened to a private meeting space above the ballroom. 12 board members filed in, each holding their sealed envelope, each greeted by a neutral-faced foundation staff member who offered water, tablets, and preloaded summaries of the transition documents. Selena stood at the head of the table. No legal team present, no loud demands. She simply welcomed each person, made eye contact, and waited. At 12 a.m. sharp, the final door closed, and Axton Vale was nowhere in sight. Selena began. "I'm exercising my right, per our operating agreement, to call a special vote on restructuring the Foundation's executive board. The details are outlined in the packet you've received. My controlling interest is confirmed in the documents you've already reviewed." Someone asked, "Is Mr. Vale aware?" She met the man's eyes without blinking. He was notified in writing. Multiple times. No one questioned her authority. By 12:19 a.m., the vote passed. Unanimous. Selena Carver Vale was now the sole executive trustee and public face of the Vale Foundation. Axton's privileges were formally transitioned to non-voting consultant status, optional, non-binding, and unprotected. He hadn't shown. He didn't need to. His silence sealed it. Selina stepped out onto the building's rooftop, away from the murmurs of the boardroom, away from the sparkle of the gala below. The air was crisp. Manhattan glowed in the distance, 1,000 windows blinking like stars. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and let the quiet surround her. No cameras, no headlines, just a woman in heels on the roof of her own empire, and finally at peace with how it happened. She hadn't fought dirty. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't chased anything that didn't want to stay. She had observed, calculated, executed, and now she had walked Axton out of her life, with no one needing to lift a finger but him. Have you ever walked away from someone, without raising your voice, without warning, without a fight, and still left them stunned? Drop a comment if you've ever let silence speak louder than anger. Like this video if Selina's calm power moved you. Share this story with someone who needs a reminder. You don't have to yell to win. You just have to stop waiting for someone to respect what you already know you deserve. Subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories, where every story teaches, heals, and inspires. The morning after the gala broke like glass, sharp, loud, and impossible to ignore. It started with a single headline. Selina Carver-Vale assumes full control of Vale Foundation following gala power shift. Then another. Billionaire wife moves quietly, leaves husband out of his own empire. And the one that trended fastest, the ice strategist just got outplayed by his own wife. Selina didn't read the articles. She didn't need to. She'd written every beat of the story, not with interviews, but with silence, and the world filled in the rest. Axton Vale woke up at 6:17 a.m. to 23 missed calls, 12 urgent emails, and a headline notification sitting bold on his phone screen. He rubbed his eyes, still in yesterday's shirt, trying to remember what had happened. He hadn't gone to the boardroom. He'd assumed it was a bluff. He never thought she would follow through. Not like this. He called his lawyer. No answer. He called the chairman. Declined. He called Selina. Straight to voicemail. He threw the phone across the hotel suite, where it crashed against the marble wall and shattered. He hadn't even gone home last night. He'd left the gala angry, confused, and humiliated. And instead of damage control, he'd drowned his ego in bourbon and hollow. Reassurance from a woman who barely knew what she'd walked into. Selina hadn't taken revenge. She had taken control. And now, there was nothing left for him to direct. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner cafe in Brooklyn, Selina sat in a linen blouse and soft jeans, no makeup, hair loose over her shoulders. Across from her, Zian Holt, quiet, steady, set down a coffee in a paper bag. "I brought the walnut croissant," he said, sliding it toward her. "Figured you could use one less decision today." Selina smiled softly. "You were right about this place. It's quiet, and I think I'm going to need more quiet for a while." Zian took his seat across from her, his posture relaxed, his gaze steady. She hadn't told him everything. Not yet. But she had told him enough. That she was ending something, that she was doing it her way, that she didn't want rescue, only peace. He hadn't asked invasive questions. He hadn't commented on the headlines. He simply passed her the warm drink and waited. A text buzzed on her phone. She glanced down. "Unknown number. We need to talk. This isn't over." She didn't reply. She deleted the message, powered off her phone, and placed it face down on the table. Zian watched her quietly, not judging, not interrupting. "I used to think silence was weakness," she said finally, "that if you didn't defend yourself, people would write their own version of your story. And now?" he asked. "Now I know," she said, her voice low but sure, "that if you write the truth inside yourself, you don't need to prove it to anyone." He nodded once, and that was all he said. They sat for an hour, talking about everything and nothing. The weather, the flavor of the tea, the odd little couple bickering at the next table over fresh scones. Zian told her about a small property in the Bronx he'd been eyeing. An old art school with good bones and big windows. He didn't ask her to invest. He didn't pitch a plan. He just said, "You might like the space. It's got that kind of quiet that fills you up instead of draining you." She smiled. Not the practiced public one, the real one. And for the first time in years, she felt no pressure to be brilliant, beautiful, or strategic. Just present. At 11:08 a.m., Selena's lawyer texted a short message. "Press under control. Statement published. All assets transferred successfully. Full exit is complete." Selena didn't respond. She just exhaled, slowly, like her ribs had been holding a storm. And now, the weather had passed. Zian looked up. "Good news?" She nodded. Closure. Later that day, while news anchors dissected her flawless execution, she took a walk along the riverside. Park in Dumbo, scarf tucked around her neck, sunglasses shielding her from curious glances. She passed a group of women huddled over a phone. One of them caught her gaze, eyes widening. "Are you—" Selena gave a gentle smile. "Congratulations," the woman said quietly. "That was the classiest takedown I've ever seen." Selena paused, considered saying thank you. Instead, she replied, "It wasn't a takedown. It was a step forward." Then she walked on. Brunch had always been something Selena used to perform. The table had to be perfect. The server knew her usual. The light had to hit the right angle for photos. Axton liked to sit near the window, not for sunlight, but so the world could see him. She used to go along with it. Smile, post, say the right things to the right people. But this morning's brunch, the one after the headlines shattered every illusion, was different. No reservations, no photographers, no performance, just a worn cafe tucked between a florist and a used bookshop. The kind of place where no one called her Mrs. Vale or tried to pitch a business deal over poached eggs. She sat across from Zian Holt, a man who didn't wear a watch, didn't flinch, at silence, and didn't need to be the loudest voice in any room. "I thought you'd be getting flooded today," he said, sipping his black coffee. "Calls, messages, press." Selena stirred her tea slowly. "I turned my phone off. Let them chase echoes." "Smart." She looked up. "Does it bother you? All this attention?" He shook his head. "I'm not interested in people chasing me. I build things that last, not trends." She smiled. "I used to think reputation was everything. The name, the look, the brand. And now—" She took a bite of the walnut croissant, closed her eyes, let the warmth settle on her tongue before answering. "Now I just want real things. Even if no one notices." Zian told her about a property he'd seen the week before. A rundown community center with skylights covered in dust, but with a structure that still breathed life. "Used to be an art school," he said. "The kids used to paint murals on the outer wall. You can still see faded colors behind the vines." Selena leaned in, intrigued. "What happened to it?" "Funding dried up." "Same story." "Is it for sale?" He nodded. "Cheap too, but it needs care. Not just renovation, attention, heart." She was quiet for a moment, fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "I always wanted to start something like that," she said. "An art center for children. For the ones whose voices are too small to be heard. The ones who don't come from legacy or pedigree, but have vision anyway." Zian watched her. "You ever tell Axton that?" She met his gaze. "I used to. He said it was cute. Said it wouldn't scale. Said there was no brand value in charity without Pa." Zian leaned back in his seat, eyes steady. "And what do you say now?" Selena didn't hesitate. "I say I don't need it to scale. I just need it to be mine." The way he looked at her after that, it wasn't awe. It wasn't admiration. It was respect. The kind that's quiet. The kind that doesn't ask you to be smaller so he can feel bigger. Zian reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded napkin. He placed it in front of her. Written in clean, simple handwriting were 3 addresses. Potential properties, old spaces, hidden gems. "I already spoke to the agent. If you're interested, I'll take you there." Selena picked up the napkin, reading over each note. You did this before I told you? He shrugged. I didn't know the full story, but I could tell something in you wanted to build, not just rebuild. There's a difference. She stared at the napkin a little longer, then tucked it into her purse. She didn't say thank you. She just said, take me next week. Later, they stepped out onto the sidewalk. The florist next door had opened, and a rush of lavender and eucalyptus filled the air. Zian offered to walk her to the car, but Selina shook her head. I think I'll walk a bit. Let the morning settle. He nodded, then handed her something from his pocket, a small carved wooden bird, rough but beautiful. The wings stretched wide as if caught mid-flight. It's not perfect, he said. Selina ran her fingers across the edges. I like things that aren't perfect anymore. Their eyes met. Not rushed, not searching. He smiled once. Call me when you're ready. And with that, he walked away. No follow-up question, no lingering, just peace. Selina tucked the wooden bird into her bag next to the napkin. She began walking, slowly, block by block. She passed a newsstand and saw her face on the front page. Headlines shouted her name. Photos from last night, her in the emerald gown, Axton beside the other woman, and her walking away with nothing but a purse in hand. A man glanced between her and the paper, then looked again. But she kept walking. Because the world was reacting to a moment she had designed, not for them, but for her. That night, alone in her penthouse for the first time without the weight of his, keys in the bowl or his voice down the hall, she poured herself a glass of water. Not wine, not champagne, water. Clean, clear, still. She stood by the window, looking out at a city that once demanded her constant perfection. And for the first time, she wasn't performing. She was breathing. She had brunch with peace. 3 days passed before Selina called. Zian answered on the second ring, his voice calm as ever. You ready? I am. They didn't say much else. By the end of the hour, they stood together outside an aging brick building, tucked behind a narrow row of townhouses in the South Bronx. Faded paint clung to the frame of what used to be a front sign, Borough Art Center. Half the letters were gone. Ivy crept along the sides. The doors, once glass, were now reinforced with plywood. It looked abandoned to anyone passing by. But Selina saw something else. She walked forward and placed her palm flat against the door. This was built with purpose. Zian stepped beside her. You can feel it? I can feel what's left of it, she said. He unlocked the front. The hinges moaned as the door opened, revealing a wide room coated in dust and sunlight. Shafts of natural light streamed in from broken skylights above, cutting across the hardwood floors like spotlights. Rusted easels sat scattered along the back wall. A forgotten box of colored pencils lay cracked open on a table near the window. Selina stepped inside slowly, her heels echoing. Every step seemed to wake something asleep. There were still crayon marks on the walls. A faded mural stretched from floor to ceiling. Children with wings, holding brushes instead of swords. She stopped in front of it, reached out. The tips of her fingers hovered just above the paint. Zian watched quietly. No commentary, no sales pitch. He simply gave her the space. Why'd you bring me here first? She asked, not looking away from the mural. Zian replied, because this one still has your name in it. You just hadn't written it yet. She turned to him. It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't charm. It was observation, from a man who didn't see her as fragile or broken, but as someone unfinished. Selina walked the length of the room. She peered into the back, where a small office stood with a broken desk, a file cabinet tipped on its side. She opened the cabinet out of curiosity. Inside, dozens of old flyers, photographs of smiling children holding up their messy paintings. She sat on the floor and sifted through them. Zian joined her. Cross-legged, knees touching hers, he held up one photo. A girl no older than 6, covered in paint, beaming from ear to ear. This is what you wanted, isn't it? He asked. Before the press, before the penthouse, before being Mrs. Vale. She nodded. It still is. She walked outside and stared at the sky above the building. Can we save it? She asked. Zian didn't hesitate. If you want to, I do, but I don't want it branded. No press, no powered by Veil Foundation labels. He smiled. Then we won't. I want it simple, free for the kids, quiet, real. Then we start where all real things start, with intention. Selena looked at him. How did you end up this way? Zian chuckled. What way? Still, whole, not trying to impress anyone. He looked toward the mural. Because I used to be the opposite. I used to think love had to be earned. Now I know, it just has to be protected. She didn't respond at first, but something about that landed deep in her chest. Zian didn't try to finish the moment. He let it be, gave her time, like he always did. They left the building a few hours later. No decisions made yet, no contract signed, but Selena's steps were lighter, her face softer. As they reached her car, Zian turned to her. I don't need you to decide today. I just need you to know you're allowed to do this. Without asking permission, she nodded. That's what I forgot. He paused, then added, if you want help drafting plans, I'll be around. She looked at him, her voice steady. I don't need help. He smiled. I know, but I'd like you to be part of it anyway. Their eyes held. No rush, no pressure, no promises. But something unspoken passed between them, an understanding. This wasn't about rescue. This wasn't about replacing pain with romance. This was about finding someone who met her exactly where she was. Selena had built entire chapters of her life under someone else's name. The business cards, the press releases, the charity letters, all stamped Selena Carver Vale, a name that had once meant something. That once felt like partnership. Now it just reminded her of how much she'd given to someone who thought visibility was ownership. But in that small, dust-laced studio with broken skylights and childhood, murals on the walls, she started to remember her own name again. Not the name she married into, the one she was born with. Carver, the name her father carved into the base of a handcrafted bookshelf still standing in her mother's living room. The name her high school art teacher wrote on every prize ribbon she ever earned. The name that stood alone, strong, before it was ever paired with someone else's legacy. She walked the perimeter of the building with Zian. They made notes, not about how to make it profitable, but how to make it safe, functional, beautiful, free, a place where children could walk in without needing to be anything but themselves. No donor walls, she said as they reached the back entrance. Zian nodded. No branded aprons, no photo ops, just paint, light, and people who listen. Done. She smiled and glanced at him. You don't ask me if I'm sure. He looked straight ahead. I don't need to. You already are. The next morning she sat at her kitchen island, sunlight spilling across the marble, a mug of tea steeping beside her tablet. She opened a fresh file. Program draft, the Carver Studio, no veil, no foundation stamp, no gloss, just her. She outlined the first week's schedule, open hours, mentorship sign-ups, supplies needed. She typed every bullet herself, no assistants, no signatures from someone else's desk. And when she was done, she emailed it to Zian with a single sentence. Let's start. They met the following afternoon at the building again. Zian had already cleaned out the office space. The old furniture was stacked by the curb. He wore jeans and a grey t-shirt, sleeves pushed up, paint dust smudged across his arm. Selena wore flats, no heels, no blazer, hair tied back. She stepped inside and rolled up her sleeves. I don't paint, she said. You don't have to, he replied. But you can if you want. She picked up a brush and dipped it into the white primer. Then, without warning, slowly, quietly, she began painting the far wall. Not with practiced strokes, not with elegance, just movement. Zian joined her. They didn't talk for a while, just worked, brushed, cleaned, brought something back to life. By sunset, half the wall was white again. Selena leaned back, sweat on her brow, paint on her hands, and smiled. Not the polite kind, the real kind. the one she hadn't worn in years. "I can't remember the last time I did something for me," she said. Zian rinsed his brush. "Then let this be the first of many." She watched him, thought about how different this was. No game, no control, no image to maintain, just honesty, just space. And just then, he looked over and asked, "Do you know what color the door should be?" She paused, then said, "Lavender, the soft kind, but bold enough to be remembered." He nodded. "Just like you." Later that night, she stood in her walk-in closet, staring at rows of designer gowns, heels still in boxes, handbags lined up like trophies. She walked past them and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a tattered sketchpad from college, the one she used before Axton, before Veil Dynamics, before power was tied to performance. She flipped through the pages. There, pencil drawings of children with wings, murals she never painted, color palettes she never had time for. She closed the sketchpad and held it to her chest. Tomorrow, she'd bring it to the studio, because she wasn't building someone else's legacy anymore. She was building her own. Axton Vale had always known how to manage chaos. Market crash, shift assets, boardroom coup, schedule a retreat, flip loyalties over scotch, negative press, leak a counterstory, and hire better lawyers. For years, power obeyed him. People waited for him. Rooms paused when he entered. But that Monday morning, the world didn't wait. No one paused. And power, for the first time, didn't call back. He sat in his downtown office, or what used to be his. His nameplate still rested on the desk, but his keycard had been downgraded. The assistant at the front no longer stood when he entered. He flipped through a thick packet of legal documents marked with his own signature, unaware he'd ever signed most of them. Everything was legitimate, timed, stamped, processed with silent precision. The Vale Foundation, gone. Board seat, reassigned. Media assets, under her PR advisor now. Executive rights, severed. She'd outmaneuvered him, and he couldn't even call it theft. It was administration, logistics, bound by ink. He didn't rage, not at first. He stared out the window, jaw tight, watching the street below like it might offer an answer. Then he picked up his phone. "Get me Selena," he told his assistant. "Sir, she's declined all contact. Use my private number. She's blocked it." He froze. Blocked. Selena hadn't screamed. She hadn't begged. She had simply removed him from her life, logistically, legally, emotionally, as if he were a transaction she'd already reconciled. That evening, he went home, not to their penthouse. That was hers now. He checked into a hotel 2 blocks from his former office. The suite was polished, cold, and unfamiliar. He poured a drink and sat on the edge of the bed. The silence mocked him. No footsteps, no perfume trail through the hallway, no gentle clinking of teacups from the kitchen. He had spent years chasing louder victories, thinking the quiet ones weren't worth much. But the quiet woman he once married had just ended him without ever raising her voice. His phone buzzed. A message from one of his board allies. "I warned you not to underestimate her. She doesn't bluff." He deleted the text, but it echoed anyway. Across the city, Selena wasn't thinking about Axton. She had paint on her knuckles and dust on her shirt. Her hair was tied up messily, and her sleeves were rolled to her elbows. The studio was starting to breathe again. Zian had opened the skylights earlier that day. Actual sunlight poured in. The walls had been primed. The old chairs replaced. Fresh easels leaned against the wall, waiting for young hands to use them. Selena stood in the center of the space, sketchpad open, pencil gliding across the page. She wasn't drawing something perfect, just real. A child reaching for a window. A sun with uneven rays. Freedom without symmetry. Zian walked in quietly, holding 2 drinks. Still sketching. "I forgot how much I needed this," she said without looking up. "You never forgot," he said gently. "You just weren't allowed to remember." She paused, looked at him. And in that moment, she realized something. Zian had never told her how to move on. He had just stood beside her while she figured it out. They stepped outside into the afternoon breeze. A group of teenagers walked by, laughing, one of them tossing a basketball back and forth between his hands. One boy glanced at the studio door and said, "This the new place for painting and stuff?" Zian nodded. "Coming soon." The boy smirked. "Hope it's not lame." Selina smiled. "Only if your drawings are." The other boys laughed, nudging him. "We'll come check it out," another said. "You'd better," Selina replied. They walked on, voices echoing down the sidewalk. Zian turned to her. "Recruitment's going well." Selina grinned. "They'll be here. I felt it." That night, she opened a letter that had arrived via private courier. From Axton, handwritten. She unfolded it slowly. It wasn't long. "Selina, I don't know how you planned this, but you were thorough. I underestimated you. I won't deny that. I won't grovel. That's not who I am. But I want to know why you didn't tell me to my face. Why not just scream at me and walk out like everyone else? I want to hear it. In your words. Just once. Axton." She stared at the letter for a long time, then placed it in a drawer and closed it. She owed him nothing, not even her explanation. Selina stood barefoot in the middle of the studio, a drop cloth under her feet and a roller in her hand. She wore no makeup, just a loose tee stained with paint and soft grey joggers. Her hands were already speckled with lavender. It was the color she'd chosen for the door. Not too pale, not loud, the kind of lavender that settled into the wall like it belonged there. She moved slowly, stroke after stroke, until the entire frame was covered. Zian was in the corner, screwing in fresh bulbs to the ceiling track. The light flickered to life, warming the room with a soft yellow glow. It wasn't finished, but it felt alive now. The studio had no plaque with Axton's name, no glossy logo in the front window, no mention of the Vale Foundation on any of the order forms, and that was exactly how she wanted it. Zian stepped back and glanced around. "You did this," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. Selina took a sip from her water bottle. "We did." He shook his head. "You would have found your way here with or without me." She tilted her head. "Maybe. But I didn't have to do it alone. They didn't need to say more. This wasn't a love story. Not yet. This was about space and choice and knowing when to hold and when to let go. He didn't try to define anything. He didn't press. And that was why she trusted him. Later that afternoon, she brought in a box of her old sketches. She laid them across the main table, drawings from college, concept boards she once abandoned in favor of boardroom presentations, charcoal portraits she hadn't touched since she became Mrs. Vale. The door opened behind her. Zian stepped in with a small box in hand. "What's that?" she asked. He set it down gently and opened it. Inside were dozens of colored pencils, neatly arranged in a carved wooden tray. "I made the box," he said. "The pencils, those were mine. From my first job. I was going to be an illustrator once." Selina's eyes lifted. "What happened?" "Life, deadlines, rent. I stopped drawing, but I never got rid of these." She ran her fingers over the pencils, the names worn off from use, the tips freshly sharpened. "You sure you want to leave them here?" "I want them to be used, not shelved." She nodded once. "Then they'll stay." They worked in quiet rhythm the rest of the day, installing shelves, hanging canvases, arranging chairs in soft circles rather than rows. Every detail was intentional. No stage, no podium, just space for art, space for voices. At sunset, she stood at the door, arms crossed lightly as she looked around. "It's almost ready," she whispered. Zian came up beside her. "How do you feel?" She exhaled. "Like I'm finally walking in my own name." Elsewhere, Axton was unraveling. He'd called 4 of the board members. All refused to return his messages. He tried to contact the media house that had once owed him favors. They declined an interview. Too risky now. Even his personal assistant had updated her employment on LinkedIn from executive assistant To Axton Vale, to Senior Administrator, Vale Philanthropic Division, reporting to Selina Carver. He slammed his laptop shut and stared at the hotel ceiling. He thought about writing her again. Begging? No. Explaining? Pointless. He'd been left. But worse, he'd been outclassed by a woman who'd once quietly waited for his attention and who now no longer flinched at his silence. The only thing he could do was show up. So he did. 3 days later, Axton stood across the street from the new Carver studio. No media, no security, no press. Just him in a dark coat, sunglasses on, watching from the sidewalk. Inside, children lined up with paints. Parents signed forms. A few teenagers kicked at the dirt outside, pretending they weren't excited. He saw her through the window. Selina, in jeans and a tucked-in shirt, smiling as she handed out brushes. Not posing, not performing, laughing. He hadn't seen her laugh like that in years. It didn't sting, it scorched, and she hadn't even looked in his direction. Zian stepped out to dump some recycling. He saw Axton across the street. He paused, arms crossed. Axton stared at him. They didn't know each other, but Zian recognized him immediately. He didn't wave, didn't smirk, didn't puff his chest. He just nodded once. Like he'd already won something Axton didn't know how to value. Then he turned and walked back inside. Axton stayed for 5 more minutes, then left without saying a word. Inside, Selina looked up. She hadn't seen him, but something in her chest told her he had been near. Zian walked back in, brushing dust from his jeans. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded. "Everything's in its place." She smiled softly. "Good," and for the first time in a long time. She believed it. The morning of the grand opening arrived like sunlight through the newly cleaned skylights of the Carver studio. There were no limousines, no press barriers, no red carpets, just chalk drawings on the sidewalk outside, a welcome board painted by a 10-year-old the day before, and a line of children with messy ponytails and scuffed sneakers holding their parents' hands. Selina stood at the front doors, wiping her hands on a towel and tucking a few loose strands of hair behind her ear. She wore denim and canvas sneakers, no designer tags, no stylists, just herself. And somehow, that made her shine more than ever. Zian walked up behind her, holding a toolbox and a steaming coffee. He handed her the drink and gave a nod toward the street. "They're already lining up." Selina smiled. "We didn't even advertise. Word gets out when the offering is honest," he said. They stood side by side, watching the families gather. "This used to scare me," she said. "The idea of opening something and no one showing up." He looked at her. "But you showed up for yourself first. That's why they're here." At 9:02 a.m., Selina turned the lock and opened the doors. The first little girl to enter had paint-stained fingers before she even got past the welcome table. Parents hovered at first, unsure if they should stay. But Selina walked each one through, showed them the art wall, the reading corner, the mentor sign-up sheet. "This place is theirs," she told a young mother, nervously clutching a toddler. "There are no tests, no grades, just color, just freedom." One by one, the hesitation faded. Laughter rose. Music hummed from an old stereo Zian had wired to a speaker system the night before. By 10 a.m., every table was full. Across town, Axton Vale sat in the back seat of a car with tinted windows, parked a block from the Carver studio. He didn't get out. He watched. From the distance, it looked like nothing. A small building tucked between a bookstore and a laundromat. No flashing sign, no velvet ropes. But inside, he saw movement. Children rushing through the door, parents lingering with trust, and in the middle of it, her, Selina, not in heels, not in a gown, not holding his hand. She was crouched beside a girl with braids, helping her hold a paintbrush. Selina used to hold meetings with tech founders and royalty. Now she knelt on concrete floors in sneakers. And she looked free. Axton couldn't understand it. She had walked away from everything he thought mattered. And somehow, She had more now than he did. Inside the studio, the activity buzzed. One boy was sculpting with clay. Another painted a basketball court on canvas, carefully lining out players with pencil first. A group of girls clustered near the back corner, working on a collaborative mural of stars and trees. Selina moved between tables, checking on each one, listening more than she spoke. Zian stood near the back, watching her as much as the kids. At one point, she sat beside a boy who had torn up 3 pages in frustration. He looked embarrassed. "I can't draw hands. They always look wrong." She picked up his pencil and drew a rough outline, crooked fingers, awkward thumbs. "Mine looked worse at your age," she said, "but I kept drawing them anyway. Not because they got better, but because I stopped being afraid of getting it wrong." The boy looked at her sketch. "This is bad," she laughed. "Exactly." He smiled, picked up the pencil again. That was the moment Zian knew. This place wasn't just hers. It was a mirror of her heart. Unpolished, brave, real. By noon, volunteers brought in lunch, sandwiches and juice boxes, some snacks sponsored by a local grocery store. Selina took a moment to step outside, sipping water as the sun hit her face. Zian joined her. "You okay?" She nodded. "Better than okay." He paused, then said, "He was parked down the block earlier." She didn't react. "I figured he didn't come in. I wouldn't have stopped him. You wouldn't have welcomed him either." Selina looked out at the street. "I don't need him to see this. It's not about proving a point anymore." Zian's brow lifted. "Then what is it about?" She turned to him, her voice calm. "Living the life. I stopped asking permission for..." Back in the hotel, Axton was still sitting. Same seat, same silence. He had money. He still had control of Veil Dynamics. But the calls weren't ringing like they used to. The invitations came slower. The articles had cooled. He was still relevant, but barely. And all he could think about was how the woman he thought would crumble without him had built something lasting. Without noise, without scandal, without him. He'd never seen her look so fulfilled. He knew he didn't have a way back in. Not to her life, not to her name, not even to the space she once held in his schedule. She wasn't blocking him. She had just moved on. And that was worse than war, because he'd lost without even getting to fight. Selina returned inside just before closing hour. Parents gathered at the door with sleepy kids and paint-stained shoes. Everyone said, "Thank you." Some hugged her. A few asked when the next session would be. One little girl handed her a folded paper with a heart drawn on it, and the words, "Ms. Selina, I like you. You make me feel big." Selina blinked. She kept that note. After everyone left, she and Zian sat in the front, surrounded by drying art and the scent of fresh paper. No music. Just soft quiet and the clatter of brushes in a sink. He looked at her. "You sure you want to do this again tomorrow?" She looked around. "I never want to do anything else." By 6:45 p.m., the studio was quiet. The last of the crayons were back in their bins. The windows were locked. The walls glowed with fresh paintings taped up by tiny hands, suns with oversized smiles. Crooked trees in rainbow colors, and a mural in progress started by the older kids. Selina stood in the middle of it all, sleeves rolled, a pencil behind one ear, her fingers stained with blue paint. She should have felt tired. Her feet hurt. Her back ached. But her soul felt full, heavy with purpose, not pressure. Zian was stacking chairs in the corner. "You want me to walk you out?" he asked. She glanced around, then shook her head. "I think I want to sit a little longer." He didn't insist. "Lock up after you finish." She nodded. Zian walked to the door, paused, then looked back. "I've never met someone who turned pain into something this warm." Selina smiled softly. "That's because no one ever gave me permission to. Until I stopped asking for it." He left with no more words. Selina sank onto one of the stools near the paint shelf, staring at the mural the girls had started. A blend of sky and sea. Somewhere in the swirl of color, they had drawn a girl in a boat, holding her own paddle. That's what she had become. No lifeguard, no lighthouse, Just a woman in a boat she learned to row alone. Back at her penthouse, the one Axton no longer had access to, she walked in after 8 p.m., carrying her sketch pad and the folded thank you note from the little girl. She didn't turn on the lights right away. She moved through the rooms with familiarity. The kitchen still smelled faintly of vanilla and cedarwood. The marble counters gleamed under the fading city light. For the first time in months, she didn't check her phone, didn't wonder where he was, didn't wait for keys jingling at the door. She had used to wait. For years, she'd prepare dinner only to eat alone. She'd pour 2 glasses and finish 1. She'd watch the clock like it could explain the silence. But tonight, she walked into an empty home and felt peace. Not because it was empty, but because no one owed her an arrival. She ran a warm bath, dropped in lavender oil, and slid beneath the water. The silence didn't echo anymore. It held her. She let her mind drift. To the studio, to the kids, to the sound of laughter in rooms where silence used to rule. To Zian. She thought about the way he watched her, not like she was on display, but like he saw something working, something choosing itself again and again. She thought about how he never asked about her past unless she wanted to share, how he let her decide the pace of every interaction. She didn't know what it was between them yet, but she knew it was safe, and that meant everything. After the bath, she sat on her bed in an oversized sweatshirt, drying her hair with a towel. She picked up the sketch pad and opened to a new page. She started sketching the mural again, this time from memory. The boat, the girl, the sky bleeding into the sea. But this time, she added something. A sun behind her. Not in front, not something she chased, something that followed. Across town, Axton stared at a takeout menu for the 3rd time and still couldn't decide what to order. Nothing tasted good lately. Nothing filled him. He tried to contact Selena twice more. Both messages bounced back, unread, blocked. He opened a browser, typed in her name. Article after article still popped up. Carver Studio launches first youth program in Bronx from silence to strategy. Selena Carver's quiet rise ex-wife of tech mogul launches her own legacy. His legacy was shrinking. Her name was expanding, and she hadn't used his once. The next morning, Selena arrived at the studio early. The sun hadn't fully risen, and the street was still quiet. She unlocked the door, flicked on the lights, and stood there, just breathing. Zian arrived 15 minutes later, holding a tray with 2 bagels and coffee. "You always beat me here," he said. "I sleep better when I know I'm coming back to this," she replied. He set the tray down and looked around. "These walls are going to hold stories," he said. "Not the kind people forget, the kind they pass down." She looked at him and nodded. "That's the only kind that matters." Later that day, the first email arrived in her studio inbox. Subject, speaking invitation, Women of Legacy Gala. They wanted her to share her story, her strength, her path to independence. Selena read the body of the email and smiled. She didn't feel like speaking. She was already doing that, every day, with every kid who picked up a brush in her space. She clicked decline. She didn't need to be on a stage anymore. She was already home. The napkin was still in her bag, folded carefully, creased at the edges, but intact. 3 addresses, 3 possibilities. Zian had written them down weeks ago before the studio even had a name, before a single paint can had been ordered, before she dared to believe she could build something that had nothing to do with Axton Vale. Selena kept that napkin close, not because it was grand or poetic, but because it was simple. No pressure, no contracts, no PR campaign. Just a quiet offering from a man who didn't need her to fall in love with him. He just needed her to believe in herself again. And she did. Not all at once, but steadily. It was a Thursday when she pulled the napkin out again. The kids were painting, the soft hum of conversation floating in the air. A boy near the corner table was sketching his dog. A girl was experimenting with brown paint, insisting chocolate could be a sunset color. Selena sat in the back office during a break, the studio lights buzzing softly above her. She unfolded the napkin, smoothed it on the desk, and stared at the addresses, like they were coordinates to the version of herself she used to bury. That first address, this studio, had become real, but the other two, they were still waiting. She grabbed a pen and drew a small check mark next to the Carver studio address. Then she circled the second one. That evening, she called Xian. "You still remember the second address?" she asked. He didn't miss a beat. "The old print shop with the glass roof? Still standing? As of last week. No one's claimed it. I want to see it. Tomorrow?" She hesitated for only a second. "Tonight." He didn't ask why. He just said, "I'll meet you there at 7. The sun was dropping when they arrived. The old print shop was nestled on a quiet block in Harlem. Dust coated the front windows, but the glass was intact. Faded lettering still clung to the top sign, Westmore Print and Press. Xian unlocked the side door and pushed it open. Inside, the air was stale but undisturbed. A few abandoned machines sat under tarps. There were shelves along the walls, and a long counter stretched across the room. The ceiling was high, skylights covered in grime, but still catching slivers of fading light. Selina stepped inside slowly. "It smells like ink," she said. Xian nodded. "It always does. Old presses hold scent better than memory." She walked the length of the space, running her fingers along the counter's edge. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That this could be more than just art," she replied. "What if we printed the kids' work? Let them sell it. Show them their voice is worth something?" He watched her carefully. "You don't want to build a brand," he said. "You want to build confidence." "Exactly." She turned to him. "I used to think I needed to be louder to be taken seriously. But now I know. I just needed to stop asking for permission to be here." Xian took something out of his pocket. A folded piece of paper. He opened it. It was the same napkin, or so she thought, but this one had something new written on it. Carver and Company Studio 2. He looked at her. "I kept thinking, if you ever wanted to grow it, maybe the kids who age out of the studio could work here, mentor the younger ones, print, design, sell, sustain themselves." Selina blinked. "You've been thinking about this?" "Since the day I saw what you could do with nothing." She walked over slowly. She took the paper from his hand and folded it once more, placing it inside her coat pocket. Then she looked up at him and said, "I want to do this, but only if you'll run it with me." Xian didn't answer immediately. Then, "Only if my name never goes on the sign." She raised a brow. "Why?" "Because this is your story. I'm just here to make sure you keep turning the page." Later that night, as she rode home in the back of a cab, Selina leaned her head against the window and thought about how strange it felt to be building something with a man who didn't ask for credit. Axton had built his empire with noise, public deals, expensive shows of loyalty, constant reminders of who he was. Xian offered something else: space, support, no need for a spotlight. And yet, somehow, he was the most visible man she had ever known. She stepped into her penthouse just after 9. The lights were low. The city blinked beyond the glass. Selina walked to the table and opened her sketchbook. She flipped past the mural drafts, past the logo variations for the Carver studio. She turned to a clean page and drew something new: 2 buildings, connected by a footpath, one humming with paint and noise, the other humming with machines and motion. She drew figures moving between them. Then at the base of the drawing she wrote, "No permission needed, no names borrowed, all mine." She stared at it, smiled, then closed the book. Xian didn't come from old money. He didn't have board seats or glossy bios. He didn't own stock in multinational companies or land interviews on Bloomberg. He was just a man who knew how to build things with his hands, fix what broke, stand by someone without turning it into a performance. And for Selina, that was more powerful than any empire she'd ever sat beside. 3 weeks after the opening of Carver Studio and 2 weeks after visiting the old print shop, Xian started bringing blueprints to their nightly planning sessions. Not investor pitch decks, not revenue forecasts, just clean plans. with notes in the margins like space for natural light, kid-friendly press, height, and quiet nook in the back. For the ones who don't speak often, Selina spent her evenings across the table from him with her sketch pad open, matching her vision to his structure. She wasn't used to this, not just collaboration, but being listened to. With Axton, meetings had been top-down. He gave the structure, and she filled in the space. Her ideas were welcomed only when they aligned with his. But Xian, he didn't interrupt. He didn't redirect. He built around her words, not over them. "You realize this makes you a CEO founder, right?" she said one night, pencil in hand, foot tucked beneath her chair. Xian leaned back, sipping water. "Only if you ever feel like writing my name on the door." She watched him carefully. "You don't want credit?" He smiled. "I want this to exist. That's the credit." She set her pencil down and crossed her arms on the table. "You could have had your own studio years ago. Why wait?" He shrugged. "I wasn't waiting. I was healing. Sometimes we think we're stuck when we're actually just recovering." His words settled in her chest like truth, heavy, necessary. "You're still healing?" she asked quietly. Xian didn't hesitate. "We always are. The question is whether we choose to bleed on others or bleed into purpose." Selina swallowed. That's when she knew she wasn't building this alone. She was building with someone. And that was new. The next day, Selina arrived at the print shop before Xian. She unlocked the door and walked into the still dim interior. The air was dry with old paper and potential. She moved to the back wall, the one she'd avoided last time, covered in old flyers and brittle staples. Slowly, she peeled the remnants away, layer after layer. Events, lost pet notices, block party, invites from 2013. Beneath all of it, a painted panel began to emerge. Dusty, faded, but still there. It was a hand-painted quote. "If you can see it in your head, you can hold it in your hand." She traced her fingers across the words. Whoever had owned this space before had believed in imagination. And maybe, like her, they just needed someone to help them rebuild what they almost gave up on. Xian arrived 20 minutes later with 2 paint samples, a roll of tape, and fresh muffins from a corner bakery. He saw her standing in front of the wall and paused. "You found it?" She nodded. "We're keeping it." "Good," he said. "That quote built half my childhood." She turned to him. "What was the other half built on?" He smiled. "Getting back up after no one noticed I fell." That afternoon, they painted the front door of the print shop. A deep, steady green. The kind of color that stood strong without shouting. Selina did the first brushstroke. Xian followed. It wasn't a ceremony. It wasn't a marketing event. It was personal, quiet, a beginning. The day ended with them sitting on the stoop outside the print shop, arms dusted in paint, the sky bruising into dusk above them. Selina leaned her head on Xian's shoulder, not out of affection, but out of comfort, out of safety. "You know," she said, "I don't know what this is." Between us, Xian didn't shift away. He replied, "I'm not in a hurry to define it. I'm just here. Every day you let me be." She closed her eyes for a moment. That was enough. More than enough. That night, in her penthouse, Selina opened the old folder she'd kept hidden since the divorce. The one labeled past. Inside were photos of her and Axton at galas, award ceremonies, magazine covers, behind-the-scenes moments from board retreats. She flipped through them slowly. In every single one, she was perfect, poised, elegant, but never real. She stopped at one, a shot of her smiling tightly at a foundation event while Axton spoke behind her. He was gesturing, commanding. She was fading into the backdrop. She placed that photo beside a new one, a candid taken just last week. She was on the floor of Carver's studio, barefoot, surrounded by children, laughing as a 4-year-old painted on her cheek. Same face, different life. She put the old photo in the shredder and kept the new one on her desk. She didn't need to be known as the woman who walked away from a billionaire. She was becoming the woman who built something bigger than wealth. She was becoming Selina again. The studio was closed on Sundays. It was the only rule Selina refused to break. Not for parents, not for donors, not even for volunteers eager to expand hours. 1 day a week, the space stayed quiet. Not to be cleaned, not to be marketed, but to breathe, like her. Selina arrived just after sunrise. She didn't unlock the doors, didn't turn on the lights. She just sat on the steps outside with her thermos of chamomile tea, wrapped in a grey sweater, legs tucked beneath her. The street was calm. No cars honking, no music from nearby windows. Just the rustle of wind against the gutter and the soft footsteps of early risers, walking dogs or chasing the last of morning stillness before the city roared again. For years, Selina had filled every day with motion. Meetings, strategy calls, public appearances. Her calendar was a battlefield of blocked hours and urgent tasks. But now, she was learning the art of stillness, not waiting, not hiding, just staying. By 7:30 a.m., Zian appeared. He didn't ask to come, didn't text. He carried 2 paper bags and a small blanket. When he reached her, he set them down gently and sat beside her without saying a word. She took the coffee he handed her and sipped. They watched the lights stretch across the sidewalk. For almost 10 minutes, neither of them spoke. Then she said, "You knew I'd be here." Zian shrugged. "I hoped. You could have called. You could have locked the gate." She smiled. "Touché." He opened the second paper bag. 2 warm pastries, still soft from the oven. They split one and ate in silence. It wasn't the kind of silence that hung heavy. It was soft, settling, like fog. Selina leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. "Do you ever miss what you walked away from?" she asked. Zian thought a moment. "Sometimes, but I never miss who I was in it." That landed hard. She nodded. "I gave up so much time trying to fit what Axton wanted me to be," she said. "Refined, flawless, predictable." Zian looked at her. "You were never predictable. I was compliant, but never small." She looked up at him. "He didn't make me small. I made myself small to survive. And now? I don't need to shrink anymore." A few kids passed by, waving. They'd gotten used to seeing her here, the lady who used to be on magazine covers, now in sweatpants and a hoodie, tying smocks and pouring juice boxes. She waved back, and felt more known than she ever had in the rooms where she was introduced as someone's wife. After a while, they went inside. The space was still, paint jars sealed, chairs stacked. The mural along the back wall had grown. The kids had added suns, bridges and stars with names scribbled inside. Selina walked along the wall slowly, reading the names. One stood out, Mars Hope. She recognized the handwriting. An 8-year-old boy named Malik, who always painted suns with 3 rays instead of 5. She paused in front of it. "He never talks much," she said quietly. Zian stood beside her. "Some don't need words." They stood in silence. Then she whispered, "I used to think silence was absence. Now I know. It's presence in disguise." Later, she pulled down one of her sketchbooks and flipped to a blank page. She handed Zian a pencil. "No blueprints," she said. He smiled. "Free draw. Free feel." They sat on the floor, backs against the studio wall, drawing whatever came to them. No critique, no analysis, no performance. When they finished, she looked at his paper. A small open door. Inside it, a light, a single stool, and a window. "Is that this studio?" He nodded. "It's you." She blinked. "An open door." He nodded. "And you're the light, but also the window. You don't trap anyone. You let them in. And you let them see out." Her voice caught for a second. She didn't know what to say, so she kissed his cheek. No build-up, no apology. Just a soft press of truth. He didn't ask what it meant. He didn't need to. That night, she went home and lit a candle. No television, no phone. She sat on the rug in the living room, cross-legged, sketchbook in her lap, and wrote one sentence beneath her latest design: "I don't need noise to be full." She looked around the apartment, so big, so empty once. Now, it didn't feel lonely. It felt like hers. For the first time in years. She wasn't filling space. She was living in it. And she was proud of that. Monday arrived with soft rain, not a storm, just the kind of drizzle that made the streets glisten and windows blur. Inside the Carver studio, the walls were alive again. Kids filed in wearing raincoats, rubber boots, and dripping backpacks. Someone slipped near the door. A girl in pink laughed until she hiccuped. A volunteer passed out towels. Selena wiped small hands, gave out hugs, and directed traffic toward the drying racks. The smell of paper and clay filled the air. Normal. Peaceful. Except today, Xian was missing. By 10:45 a.m. she noticed. His usual spot near the tool cart was empty. No coffee cup on the back shelf, no music playing from his speaker. She didn't panic, but she noticed. At noon, one of the kids asked, "Where's Mr. Z?" She smiled. Maybe running late. But she didn't believe that. Xian was never late. When the final class ended and the kids were gone, Selena locked the door and dialed his number. No answer. She tried once more. Still nothing. Xian's apartment was only 15 minutes away, tucked above a second-hand bookstore and a flower shop. The stairs creaked when she climbed them. She knocked twice. No answer. She turned to leave, then stopped when she heard the door unlock. Xian stood in the doorway, eyes a little tired, hoodie wrinkled, and a slight limp in his step. "I'm okay," he said before she could ask. She didn't believe him. "What happened?" "Sprained my ankle this morning." Mr. Stare. Nothing dramatic. She stared at him. "You didn't call. I didn't want to worry you. I worry when you disappear." He opened the door wider. "Come in." She stepped inside. His apartment was warm and minimal. Shelves lined with books and tools. 2 mugs drying on the sink. A large window that overlooked the city. She sat on the couch as he lowered himself into the armchair with a quiet wince. "Let me get you something," she said. "Already iced it." "I don't mean that." She stood, walked to the shelf by the door, and pulled down a paper bag she'd brought with her, one she hadn't planned on giving just yet. Inside, a soft charcoal sweatshirt. Simple, clean. Across the chest, hand-stitched letters read, C2 Studios, founder. Xian blinked. "You had this made?" She nodded. "It's yours. You helped me build this. Not from the side, not behind me. With me." He looked down at the shirt, fingers tracing the stitching. "I didn't want credit," he said quietly. "I'm not giving you credit," she replied. "I'm giving you truth." He looked up. "You don't owe me anything, Selena." "I know," she said. "That's why I want to give you everything I choose." They sat for a moment, letting the rain knock softly against the windows. Then he asked, "Do you know why I stayed all those nights, even when I could have gone home?" She shook her head. "Because peace doesn't make a sound when it enters. It just makes you stop running." Her voice was quiet. "I didn't even know I was running." He gave a faint smile. "You weren't running. You were surviving. You just learned to do it while smiling." Selena stood, walked over, and knelt by his chair. She took his hand. "I didn't fall for you because you rescued me," she said. "I fell because you never asked me to prove I was worth saving." He leaned forward, gently cupped her face. "Selena." "I know." And then, finally, they kissed. Not rushed, not desperate, but like 2 people who had walked through fire and found each other in the stillness after. It was real. It was safe. It was new. Later that night, as she rode home in a cab, the sweatshirt still in his hands, Selena looked out at the wet streets and glowing signs. Her phone buzzed. A text from unknown. "You built this just to spite me. That's what they're saying." She stared at it for a moment, then typed, "I didn't build anything to spite you. I built it because I stopped waiting for you." She hit send, then blocked the number. Back in her apartment, she placed a sticky note on her fridge. "The best kind of love never interrupts your healing." She smiled at it. turned off the lights, and went to bed, warm, whole, and absolutely unbothered. 2 months passed. The art studio buzzed with life. Color, messy floors. Hope that didn't need translation. Every week brought new children, new volunteers, and new press inquiries. But Selena avoided interviews. She wasn't hiding. She just didn't need to explain herself to headlines anymore. She wasn't interested in being the woman who rose from Betrayal. She was too busy living, too busy designing a summer program for teenagers with disabilities, too busy sketching mural ideas with her students, too busy waking up beside someone who never made her feel like she had to compete for space. Zian was still quiet, still thoughtful, but his presence filled a room better than noise ever could. They made pancakes on Sundays. They took walks through the park after class. He carved a tiny chair for the reading corner, painted it sky blue, and signed the bottom with a date and the word forward. Selena laughed when she found it. Not because it was funny, but because it felt exactly right. She didn't post about it, didn't record it, didn't turn it into content. She just sat in the chair and felt steady. But one morning, the stillness cracked. A journalist, sharp voice, glossy smile, showed up uninvited at the studio. He had a camera crew and a mic and didn't even wait for a response before stepping inside. "We just want a statement," he said. Selena stepped between him and the children. "This is a safe space. You can't be here. Ms. Carver-Vale, people want to know if the rumors are true." "What rumors?" "That you're suing for a portion of Vale Dynamics, or that you're planning to run for board, chair, or that your art studio is a media stunt to position yourself for a political role." She raised a brow. "Political role?" He grinned. "Well, you're beloved, powerful, quietly rebranding." She glanced around the room. 2 girls were painting each other's nails with glue. One boy was coloring on the back of his math homework. Someone was chewing on a crayon. Yes, a perfect place to launch a campaign. Selena faced the camera. "You want a statement?" she said softly. The mic was shoved closer. She nodded. "I used to think love looked like power," she said. "Control, public perception, applause. But I was wrong. Love looks like this. Crayons on the floor, tiny hands, quiet mornings. Peace that doesn't need to perform. I'm not interested in boardrooms or revenge. I'm interested in peace." The reporter blinked. "And if you want to talk about betrayal," she added, "talk about all the children in this city who never got a chance to be heard." She turned away. "Now leave, or I'll call the police." The clip went viral. Not because she yelled, but because she didn't, because she stood her ground with elegance and clarity. Social media flooded with praise. This is how you walk in power. Grace like this is lethal. She's writing a new rulebook. But Selena didn't read the comments. She was too busy baking cookies with a girl named Nina who had never seen her own painting hung on a wall before. That night, Zian sat beside her on the couch. "You sure you're okay?" She nodded. "He tried to provoke me. But silence has always been my sharpest reply." Zian reached for her hand. "And when silence isn't enough, then I speak, but only to remind them who they're dealing with." He kissed her hand, and they sat in peace. No cameras, no noise, just 2 people who chose each other without needing the world's permission. The board of Vale Dynamics met again. This time, the press didn't swarm. This time, there was no scandal, only a quiet shift. A woman named Lauren Dre took over as interim CEO. The same woman Selena once mentored during a short design partnership 5 years earlier. "She deserves the role," Selena had told Zian. "You could have taken it yourself. I already have what I want." Zian didn't argue. He knew better. Power wasn't the title. It was the freedom to choose not to need it. Arden Vale issued a single press release. It read, "I've stepped away from the public spotlight. This is not defeat. This is clarity. Some empires crumble not from fire, but from silence." He never mentioned Selena. Not once. But he moved out of their penthouse. He cancelled a few public engagements. And he stopped answering calls from news anchors who once worshipped his name. Selena didn't gloat. She didn't toast to his downfall. She just looked out the window one night, her tea in hand, and whispered, "That chapter is over." That weekend, she traveled with Xian to Vermont. They didn't stay in a hotel. They rented a tiny cabin near a quiet lake. No internet, no press, just pine trees and pancakes and worn novels with folded corners. Selina walked barefoot. She read for hours. She sketched the silhouette of the lake from memory, later transforming it into a mural proposal titled "Stillness Heals." Xian cooked lentils and rice and insisted on brewing coffee the right way every morning. She caught herself watching him more than once. "Why are you looking at me like that?" he asked. "Because you're so soft." He raised a brow. "You mean weak?" She smiled. "No, I mean safe." Back in the city, the studio continued to grow. Donations poured in, anonymous ones, large and quiet. Xian suspected some came from former board members, now inspired by Selina's public stand. "I didn't do it for them," she said one night. "I know, but people listen when you speak. I don't want a microphone." "Then keep the brush," he replied. A year passed. The summer program expanded into 3 cities. The mural Selina designed, "Stillness Heals," was painted by over 100 kids across 3 communities. They mailed her pictures, letters, voice notes from volunteers, and still, she didn't post about it. Still, she didn't return to the stage, but her name kept echoing, not in noise, but in respect. She became a legend, not because she fought loud, but because she didn't need to. One evening, she and Xian sat watching the sunset from the roof of their building. The skyline shimmered. But Selina wasn't looking at the skyline. She was watching 2 girls on a lower balcony play with sidewalk chalk. She turned to Xian. "I never thought peace would feel like this." He took her hand. "Like what?" "Like nothing's chasing me anymore." Xian brushed her hair back. "I'm proud of you." She rested her head on his shoulder. "I'm proud of me too." Downstairs, her phone buzzed. A message from her former attorney. The divorce had finalized. The last asset split. All clean. No drama, no headline, no bitterness. Selina didn't reply right away. She walked to her bedroom, took out the last box she had left from the penthouse, a small wooden keepsake from her wedding. She opened it. Inside, a napkin with her old monogram, a broken earring, a hotel key card, a handwritten note from Arden that once said, "You made me believe in forever." She picked up the note, folded it, tossed it in the fireplace. Then she lit a match and didn't look back. Axton Vale walked through the now quiet halls of his private estate in Rhinebeck. The staff was gone. The noise was gone. The silence, though, stayed. He stood in the hallway where portraits used to hang. Now only nails remained, small holes in the wall that whispered reminders. He'd sold shares to cover debts from the split. Investors didn't like uncertainty. They pulled. Media coverage faded fast. And without Selina beside him, the brand softened, then cracked. He thought success was self-made. Turns out, so was failure. He found himself Googling her name more often now, but not for gossip. He looked for glimpses of her, a blurry photo outside the studio, a quote in a charity report, a comment from a city council meeting. She never spoke ill of him, not once. That haunted him more than any headline. In an old notebook, he wrote down her final words at the gala, "You look tired." He didn't understand it then. He did now. He was tired of spinning, of pretending, of reaching for something that never filled the gap. He poured himself a drink, paused halfway, then put the glass down. She used to say, "You don't need to escape everything. Just sit in it." He sat. It burned, but it was real. Meanwhile, across the city, Selina opened the door to a new space, her second art studio. Smaller than the first, located near a school district with underfunded arts. The children screamed when they saw the beanbags. Xian laughed when he stepped on paint. She kissed his wrist as she cleaned it. Love looked different now. Not a pedestal, not a prize, but a place to exhale. That night, she sat with Xian, and sketched the word home in 30 different fonts. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Trying to pick the right sign for the new studio. Which one feels like us?" Selina looked at him, then flipped the page. She drew a little house. Inside she wrote, "Quiet, but never empty." Zian kissed her temple. "Perfect." Axton heard about her second studio through a mutual connection. He stared at the article for a long time, then shut his laptop. He didn't send flowers, didn't write an apology. He knew it wasn't his chapter anymore, just a story he used to be part of. The final nail came from within. An investor he once mentored, young, strategic, ambitious, proposed a restructure of Veil Dynamics. It passed. He stepped down voluntarily. His statement read, "I've had my season. Now I make space for new vision." No one asked about Selina, but she read the statement and felt nothing. Not joy, not pain, just peace. She walked into the studio the next morning and saw a little girl painting with her fingers. "Is this art?" the girl asked. Selina knelt down. "If it made you feel better, yes." The girl nodded and smeared more color. Selina smiled and stood, brushing the corner of her dress. Zian stood nearby, coffee in hand. "She asked you that last week too," he said. "She'll keep asking. I'll keep answering." Zian held out his hand. She took it. Simple, unremarkable, and yet more sacred than any vow she'd once made under chandeliers. Selina never forgot who she used to be, but she no longer needed to prove she'd survived it. Because she didn't just leave a man. She found a life, and this time it didn't require applause, just presence. 2 years later. Selina stood inside her third studio, a bright, plant-filled space tucked in the corner of Brooklyn. The soft morning light filtered through the skylight above. A new class of young adults was painting quietly. They weren't here for fame. They came for quiet, for self-worth, for healing. One girl had been in juvenile detention. One had run from an abusive foster home. Selina didn't ask questions. She handed them brushes, let them choose their own canvases. She knew what it felt like to have everyone speak for you. So in here, she made sure their voices held. Zian ran his fingers down her back as he entered the room. "You look calm," he whispered. Selina leaned back into his touch. "I am." He kissed the side of her head. "You ready for tonight?" She smiled. "You're still nervous?" "I'm asking a woman who rebuilt her life to share mine. I'd be a fool not to be." Selina turned and slid her arms around his waist. "It's already shared, but tonight it becomes official," he said. Later that evening, under a soft sky dusted with orange clouds, Selina stood beside Zian on the rooftop of the new art center they built together. No tuxedos, no press, just people who mattered. Former students, community kids, neighbors. Each guest held a candle. And before Zian could even speak, one of the girls shouted, "Say yes already!" Everyone laughed. Zian grinned and knelt. "It's not a question anymore, Selina. It's a truth," she whispered. "Then the answer is yes." The crowd cheered, candles flickering as the wind picked up. Axton read about it 3 days later. A local blogger had written, "When broken things bloom, you don't rebuild them into their old shape. You let them become something new." He closed his browser. He didn't feel anger. He didn't feel envy. He felt quiet. And for the first time in a long time, he accepted that the story wasn't about him anymore. He was a footnote in someone else's new chapter. And that was okay. Selina didn't wear a traditional ring. Instead, Zian gave her a necklace with a single pendant. Inside, a miniature version of her first sketch, the one she had drawn the day she left Axton. It was a symbol, not of where she'd been, but of who she had become. A week later, Selina stood before her newest class. She opened a blank canvas and wrote one word on it. "You. Whatever the world told you, this is your page now," she said. One student raised her hand. "What if I mess up?" "Then you paint over it," Selina answered. "That's how life works. In the corner of the room sat her favorite piece, one she never sold, never moved. It showed a woman walking away from a shattered glass tower. In her hand, she carried only one thing, a small paintbrush, and above her, the sky read, "She didn't just survive, she created." If this story reminded you that walking away isn't weakness, but a return to strength, then you know the power of quiet justice. Selena didn't fight to destroy Axton. She chose to rebuild herself, and that became the loudest answer. For more emotionally powerful stories like this one, stories where love grows from truth and healing comes without performance, subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories now. Like if you believe peace is louder than revenge. Comment, what would you have done in Selena's shoes? Share this with someone who needs a reminder. Your life isn't over. You're just turning the page.